First past the post voting is when the candidate with the most votes is the winner of the election. It doesn't matter whether or not the candidate gets more than 50% of the votes. This is a scenario in which the first past the post system evolved into a two-party system. We start out with 6 candidates: Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Dr. Doom, and Green Lantern. Iron Man gets 27% of the votes, most of which are coming from members of the military who admire him and Stark Enterprises. The immigrant vote is split between Superman and Green Lantern. Superman received 23% and Green Lantern receives only 5%. Crime fighters and civil rights activists alike are split between Batman and Spider-Man, whom they feel care for the people the most. Batman receives 21% and Spider-Man receives only 7%. Dr. Doom attracts the votes of anarchists, which amounts to an astonishing 17%. After the voting is checked, Iron Man comes out on top with 27% of the total vote. But there is one problem with this. Only about a fourth of the voters actually voted for Iron Man, but he still won and got all of the power. Seeing this, and realizing they have no chance of winning, Green Lantern and Spider-Man drop out of running. It's time to vote again, and this time there is only 4 candidates. Iron Man is running for re-election, and Batman, Superman, and Dr. Doom are trying to take his place. Iron Man raised military spending during his term, and there are now more members of the military. He receives 30% of the total vote. Many of the Green Lantern voters decide that Superman is the most like their candidate, and many of them vote for Superman this time around. The Man of Steel receives 28% of the total vote. The same happens for Batman. Much like Spider-Man, he is a crime fighter, and Spider-Man's former supporters decide to vote for Batman. He receives 28% of the total vote. Dr. Doom, with his radical views, actually lost supporters during these 4 years. He receives 16% of the total vote and decides he is no match for these protectors of the people. He drops out of the campaign. The votes are counted, and the outcome is 4 more years of Stark. However, the outcome of the election shows that this is not what the majority wanted. Iron Man received 30% of the vote, while Superman and Batman both received 28%. The majority of people did not want Iron Man to win. However, with this system, he is elected. During Iron Man's next term, supporters of both Iron Man and Batman demand to see Superman's birth certificate. It turns out he is not a natural-born citizen of the US, and not even of this galaxy. This, along with much yellow journalism claiming that Superman actually destroyed his home planet of Krypton, causes Superman to drop out of the election. And so now we have 2 candidates left, Iron Man and Batman. The votes of both supporters of Dr. Doom and Superman are split pretty evenly amongst both candidates. Supporters of Dr. Doom like Iron Man's chaotic and unorthodox ways, while Superman supporters prefer Batman's crime-fighting and justice morals. Since Superman previously had more supporters than Dr. Doom, Batman is the predicted winner of the upcoming election. Election time comes around, and the 2 candidates have become partisan. Batman has aligned with the League of Shadows, and Iron Man has aligned with S.W.A.G. The voters fill in their ballots, and Batman receives 56% of the total vote, and Iron Man receives only 44%. While these numbers are still fairly close, Batman has received a majority of the votes this time, which means this 2-party system is more democratic than the previous system. This is another scenario in which to win the election, the candidate must win the majority of the votes. On the ballot, the voter will vote for the candidates in order of preference. The votes are then counted based on the voter's first preference. If no one candidate receives 50% of the votes from the first preference, the candidate with the least amount will be eliminated, and that individual's votes will be reallocated based on the voter's second preference. After those votes are recounted, and if no one has still received 50%, then the person who has the least votes will again be eliminated. His votes will be reallocated based on the voter's second preference, and sometimes their third preference if their second preference has already been eliminated. This process will continue until a candidate receives 50% of the vote. So this is how the superhero race would pan out using the alternative system. The same 6 candidates are running again, but this time the alternative system is used. Let's say the first preference is the same as the last example. Iron Man gets 27% of the votes, Superman received 23%, Green Lantern receives 5%, Batman receives 21%, Spider-Man receives 7%, and Doctor Doom receives 17%. Because Green Lantern received the least amount of votes, he is eliminated from the election, and his votes are reallocated using the voter's second preference. Green Lantern supporters believe that Superman is the most similar, and put him down as their second preference. So Superman then receives 28% of the vote for the second vote counting. Still, no one has reached 50%, so Spider-Man is eliminated because he now has the least percentage of voters. Supporters of Spider-Man generally had Batman as their second preference, so Batman's percentage rose to 28%. The 50% benchmark has still not been reached, so now Doctor Doom is eliminated from the running. Again, there is not a candidate who has 50% of the total votes, so another must be eliminated, leaving us with only 2 left. Since Iron Man has the least votes at 27%, he is then eliminated from the running. Batman's superhero style mostly relates with Iron Man, so his votes generally were reallocated to the Batman campaign. This leaves us with Batman at 55% of the total voters, and Superman with 45% of the total voters. Since the 50% benchmark has been reached, Batman is elected out of the 6 candidates. This method is seen as more democratic because absolute majority is a necessity in order to win the office position, while the first method you only need the most out of all the individuals.